Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the DFO Fantasy Show. I'm your host, Brock Segan, managing fantasy editor of dailyfaceoff.com. We have reached week 6 of the fantasy hockey season, so we are going to take a quick look back at what happened last week, some of the injury updates for this week, and then take a look ahead at the strength of schedule and the best streaming options for week 6 of the fantasy hockey season. But we'll also, of course, get to Brock's lock of the day as we look to stay hot there. But let's begin with the news and notes for November 10th. We have a 4-game slate tonight, and Zach Hyman, the Edmonton Oilers, are on tonight's slate. But Zach Hyman is getting close to making his season debut. He practiced over the weekend. They said that it really looked like he was ramping up at practice, but his debut is not expected to come Monday versus the Blue Jackets. So we're going to have to wait at least one more game for Zach Hyman to make his season debut in Edmonton. Next, we've got Vincent Trocheck for the New York Rangers. He's expected to be back in the Rangers lineup on Monday. At Monday's morning skate, he was skating between Artemi Panarin and Alexis Lafrenière, which is a line we've seen together a lot in the past, have had a lot of success. The Rangers have been shut out in 5 of 7 games on home ice. They host the Nashville Predators tonight. They're averaging under a goal per game on home ice. Hopefully, Trocheck's return to the lineup will help spark that offense a little bit if you are an owner of New York Rangers, much as I am. And we're going to talk about the Rangers a little bit later in the show as well. Let's move to Dallas now, where Matt Duchene will not travel on the Stars' upcoming 2-game road trip to Eastern Canada. But Jamie Benn will travel. He's been out all season so far. He underwent surgery for a collapsed lung in late September, but he's currently 6.5 weeks into the initial 4-week timetable. So it really seems like he is due to make his season debut in the near future as well. And then we're going to move to Washington for our final update of the day. We've got Pierre-Luc Dubois will be out 3 to 4 months after undergoing surgery to address abdominal and adductor muscle injuries. So not expecting to see Pierre-Luc Dubois back in the Capitals lineup anytime soon. Now let's get to Brock's lock of the day. If you joined us on Thursday's episode, we had Brandon Hagel over 2.5 shots on goal at plus 105. It hit. Hagel hit 3+ shots, moving Brock's lock to 8-5 on the season with an ROI of 16.5%. So if you are betting $100 per prop or a $100 unit per bet so far, you would be up $259 on Brock's lock of the day so far. So hopefully we can keep things rolling with tonight's lock of the day. And for that, we go to our friends at 5v5 Hockey, pull up their excellent prop model. Now, we're going to start something new this week at Brock's lock of the day. I want you to comment on YouTube your favorite bet of the night. If your bet hits, you will be entered in to a chance to win a free month of 5v5 Premium, where you can access this prop model and all of their other fine features as well. So you have 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, as we record. So 4 chances to get props or any bets if you like money line or totals. The only thing we are going to say is it can't be an outrageous, line. Like, can't be picking minus 250s. Go with something reasonable. If your bet hits, you'll be entered in to win a draw. If you go 4 for 4 Monday through Thursday, you got 4 chances to win a free month at 5v5 Hockey Premium. So something fun we're going to try to do here. Thanks to our friends at 5v5 Hockey for letting us do that. Let's get to tonight's Brock's lock of the day. We're going to go a little bit different tonight. We've been doing shot props the entire season. Tonight, we're going to go with our first point prop of the year. And we've got Jack Roslovic anytime point minus 130. Roslovic skated with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl at 5v5 on Saturday and also remained on power play 1, despite the Oilers getting just absolutely blown out of the building by the Avalanche. That top line actually had a pretty great night. They managed to generate 11 scoring chances in 11 5v5 minutes. They also converted on one of their power plays, the only goal of the night that they scored. And you have to think that Oilers team, veteran group with some of the best players in the world, is embarrassed by that performance and are looking to take some of their revenge out on the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight. And Columbus is a great opponent to do that against. They are dead last in all situations expected goals against per 60 this season. They're also second last in 5v5 expected goals against per 60 this season. So one of the worst defensive groups in the entire league, facing a very pissed off Edmonton Oilers team. Now, as for Roslovic, he has points in 5 of his last 7 games. That's a 71% hit rate right now and has an on-ice expected goals for of 1.12 during that stretch. That's per game. 1.12 expected goals for per game while he's on the ice during his last 7 games. So he's on the ice with the best players in the world. They're generating chances at an elite rate, and they have one of the best matchups possible this evening. So Brock's lock of the day for Monday is Jack Roslovic, anytime point, -130. Hopefully he can take us to 9-5 on the season. Now, let's move it along to the week 6 strength of schedule and our streaming targets for this week. So kind of an interesting week. It's a pretty balanced week. No, besides Saturday, no one day is crazy heavy. Tuesday, 9 games, Thursday, 10 games. So we're going to go over, there's 3 teams with 3 late night games. But before you make up any of these pickups, I want you to look ahead in your lineup. Look at Tuesday, look at Thursday, because there's the possibility, especially Tuesday, that you have an open roster spot. So you might not necessarily need to just be targeting only the teams with 3 late night games. I'll get to a couple names at the very end of the show that you could also consider if you've got some available roster spots on Tuesday and on Thursday. But for the most part, we're going to focus in on the streaming targets that have 3 late night games this week. So that is the New York Rangers, who have 3 late night games. That is also the Nashville Predators, and that is also the New York Islanders. So we are going to start with the New York Rangers, where I just said it. I mean, this is a team that has been shut out 5 of 7 games on home ice this season. And, it's just a team that can't seem to get anything going on home ice. They've scored 5 goals in 1 game against the Sharks. Other than that, they've been either shut out or scored 1 goal. It's been disastrous. But I mentioned earlier, the return of Vincent Trocheck should certainly help this lineup. Gabe Perreault was recalled. We'll get to him in a minute. But yeah, this is a team that really has struggled on home ice. They got 2 of their 4 games on home ice this week. So we'll see how things go. I do think that this is a team that has been extremely unfortunate. We've talked about it on this podcast before. The underlying metrics are still really good for the squad. It's a team I believe will get going eventually. It just obviously can't remain as bad as it has been. So their late night matchups this week are tonight against the Predators, and they got the Lightning and the Red Wings. So basically 1 great matchup, 1 average matchup, and 1 below average matchup. But this is a team with great metrics that I do think is going to start to find the back of the net. And hopefully, when things start to click, it really kind of just opens the floodgates. But we're going to start with Will Cuylle, who is 39% rostered right now. Now, that 39% roster is almost exclusively in banger formats. In my standard league of record, very competitive 12-team league, he's still available in that league without hits as a category. So in those banger formats, he's definitely not going to be available most likely. He averages 3.3 hits per game with offensive upside. He's a great banger asset, but in standard formats, he's still widely available as far as I'm concerned. Like most of the Rangers in this lineup, he's been the victim of very poor puck luck early this season. He's shooting just 7.5% with 2.7 goals scored below expected. He also owns an on-ice shooting percentage of just 8.4% with 7.3 goals scored below expected. So been, just a victim of bad puck luck thus far. And if the Rangers are going to get some positive puck luck, and if the positive regression is going to turn around this week, Cuylle's in a great spot to benefit. With Vincent Trocheck expected to return to the lineup, he will be bumped down to the 3rd line, but he will remain on the top power play unit. So he's got 1 negative, 1 positive, I guess, there with Vinny Trocheck returning to the lineup. And quite honestly, Will Cuylle enters the week as the hottest Ranger of them all right now. He has 6 points in his last 7 games. So he started to turn a corner a little bit. Don't mind Will Cuylle in standard formats this week. Now let's get to Alexis Lafrenière, who Beebs and I talked about on Wednesday's episode as a waiver wire pickup. I really like the Rangers schedule over the next couple of weeks, and this week included. And few players, I've talked about it multiple times, have endured puck luck worse than Alexis Lafrenière. I think the only player you could really say has had worse puck luck is his teammate, Mika Zibanejad. So Lafrenière right now, 18% rostered, widely available. He has scored 4.0 goals scored below expected. That is the 5th worst mark in the NHL. He's 11.5 on ice goals scored below expected, is the 7th worst in the NHL. So like Cuylle, he's been limited. 5.7 shooting percentage, 6.9 on ice shooting percentage. Both of those rates are just horrendously bad and definitely due to regress positively in the near future. But again, like Cuylle, been a little bit hotter as of late. There are encouraging signs that things are starting to turn around. He has 6 points, 1 goal, 5 assists in his last 8 games. He was the one that was bumped from power play 1 for Will Cuylle last week. So that's kind of a negative, but he's still on the 2nd power play unit. But what is a positive is he's still playing over 18 minutes a night. And now the return of Trocheck allows them to put Trocheck, Lafrenière, and Panarin back together. And that is a trio that has been really good since the beginning of last season. They've averaged 3.1 expected goals for per 60, 32 scoring chances and 12 high danger chances for per 60 since the beginning of last year. So it's a trio that's been extremely, extremely effective. And I expect the return of Trocheck to really kind of light a fire under this top six and hopefully get Lafrenière going a little bit. The last name I'm going to talk about here from the New York Rangers is Gabe Perreault, more of a deep league target. He was recalled from the AHL yesterday after a really impressive start to the season with the Hartford Wolfpack. 10 points, 5 goals, 5 assists in 9 games there. He's expected to jump right to the top 6, as you see on screen here if you're watching along on YouTube, skating with Mika Zibanejad and JT Miller at 5v5. I think that type of deployment gives him immediate fantasy relevance in deeper formats. I'd be scooping him up in those formats as a streamer if the guys like Lafrenière or Cuylle are unavailable. No power play time yet, so we'll see if that changes as the week goes along, but I like Gabe Perreault in deeper formats. Now let's talk about the New York Islanders, who again, or actually we'll start to the Nashville Predators. Let's go to the Predators first. They got a little bit of a better matchup spread than the Islanders this week. It's a little bit more favorable, but the problem with them is they do lack that fourth game. So if you've got available lineup spots on Tuesday, on Thursday, then maybe look at the Rangers, maybe look at the Islanders a little bit more than the Nashville Predators because they do lack that fourth game. All 3 of their games are on light nights this week, so that's pretty good. I think the other thing that kind of limits their fantasy appeal this week is the fact that they are just not scoring goals at a very good clip. Bottom 3 in the NHL right now at 2.5 goals per game. But they do have some pretty interesting streaming options. First and foremost, I'm going to say Steven Stamkos, if he's available in your league, would be number 1. He's around 40% rostered, I believe. So he would be number 1. I've talked about his puck luck a lot, too. Hopefully that turns the corner. I still think Stamkos has got some in the tank. Still got goal scoring upside. We saw it over the weekend. He'd be number 1, but still he's still widely owned. So probably not available in most formats. But Jonathan Marchessault, 30% rostered, should be. He brings really, really good shot volume and a reliable fantasy floor. If you take out opening night, throw that in the garbage, he has recorded 6 points in his last 13 games. Well, that's not great because his offense sucks. But he is averaging 2.7 shots on goal, 5.6 shot attempts, and 1.8 hits per game. So those are really, really strong peripheral numbers for a streaming target. And the underlying numbers do suggest this team's been a little bit unfortunate, not to the same degree as the New York Rangers. But Marchessault himself probably could stand for a couple extra points here to start the season. But the overall lack of offense in Nashville kind of keeps his ceiling limited unless they get it going this week. But the floor is as good as you're going to find for a streaming option this week. Then let's get to Ryan O'Reilly, who's 20% rostered on the top line for the Predators. If you missed the interview, I think it was 2 weeks ago, O'Reilly recently admitted himself just absolutely not pleased with his own play, very discouraged with how things have gone early in the season, but maybe things are starting to turn a corner here for O'Reilly. 1 goal, 2 assists in his last 2 games. Sign of things to come. We will see. But on the season, he's produced 12 points in 17 games, but he has had to shoot 20.7% to get to those 6 goals. So that's likely to regress, but his on-ice goals scored below expected is 8.1. So again, another guy that's really enduring poor puck luck early in the season, and I do think that that line specifically could start to get things going here in the near future. So they've been a little unfortunate this so far this season, but O'Reilly, really steady usage. Top line with Forsberg is as good as a spot as you're going to find in this lineup for the Nashville Predators. So I think he is a relevant streamer this week. And then in deeper formats, a couple names to get to here quickly. Luke Evangelista started the year late due to some contract negotiations in the offseason, but has settled in pretty nicely. 9 points in his first 16 games thus far. But really, we've seen him start to come on a little bit more lately. He's averaging 2.7 shots on goal and 4.0 shot attempts while averaging north of 18.5 minutes per game in his last 6 games. So really starting to see him come on. He's also playing on that top line and that top power play unit. So in a really good spot to succeed here as a deep league target. I don't mind Luke Evangelista this week. And then I think Matthew Wood is deserving of a shout out as well. He's on that second power play unit. He's also on that third line. So a little bit deeper down the lineup, but despite the limited role, he has 3 goals, 4 assists in 10 games, despite playing just 12.5 minutes per game. But even with those modest minutes, he's averaging 2.2 shots on goal and 3.7 shot attempts per game. So encouraging offensive ability. Stephen Ellis, Daily Faceoff prospect analyst, had him as the number 5 prospect in the Nashville system this year. A kid that had good numbers collegiately and in the AHL. So I do think he's got some offensive ability here, and he's showcasing that early on. in the deepest of formats, I think that he is a worthwhile streaming target from the Nashville Predators this week. And then we are going to close things out with the New York Islanders, who they have 4 games and 3 late night games and a lot of streaming options to choose from. The problem is the matchups are anything but friendly. They open the week on Monday against the Devils before heading out to face Vegas, Utah, and Colorado. Just an absolutely brutal stretch of competition there. Those late night games come against the 12th ranked, 18th ranked, and 2nd ranked teams in terms of goals against per 60 this season. So the offense could be a little bit difficult to come by, but it has been an Islanders offense that has been pretty solid so far this season. And like I said, they have a lot of streaming options available to you. So we'll start with Emil Heineman, who we talked about a little bit last week as well, especially in banger formats. He's heavily rostered in those banger formats. He's averaging 3.7 hits per game, but again, remains widely available in those more standard formats. The soon-to-be 24-year-old has started adding a little bit of offense to that physical game as well. He's recorded 10 points, 6 goals in his last 13 games. And while his usage has been somewhat inconsistent, you'll see him play like 15 minutes one game, 13 minutes another. He has spent 86% of his 5v5 ice time alongside Bo Horvat, and that duo has been extremely effective so far, averaging 2.8 expected goals for per 60, 34 scoring chances, 13 high danger. Really good metrics there, and they've outscored their opponents 10-7 this season at 5v5. So Patrick Waugh really seems to like the chemistry between Heineman and Bo Horvat, which I think puts Heineman in a strong position to continue to contribute this week. It wouldn't be a streaming segment without mentioning Kyle Palmieri. He has long been one of my favorite streaming targets. He's kind of always the best streaming target or one of the best streaming targets available, but just not quite productive enough to be like a long-term hold. This season, he's tallied 11 points in 15 games. It's like exactly what I'm talking about, while averaging a really impressive 3.0 shots on goal, 5.3 shot attempts per game. So the shot volume is what makes him such an appealing streamer. Also, is very productive. He's also got great usage, 19-20 time on ice per game. Just makes him a really reliable short-term option with the volume, the shot volume, with the usage. And he also is probably due for a little bit of positive regression. Shooting just 8.9% this season, 12.5 career average for him. So really like Palmieri, as always, a great option for the Islanders. Then we'll get down to this third line, where Anders Lee and Jean-Gabriel Pageau are 17 and 11% rostered each. They have been really effective at 5v5 as a line so far this season, mostly as a duo. That third spot on that line has been kind of rotating, but those two together are averaging 3.4 expected goals for per 60, 34 scoring chances, and 16 high danger. So those are better offensive metrics per 60 than what you're getting out of Heineman and Bo Horvat. So I think those really strong underlying metrics continue to give them really consistent scoring potential as the week goes along. Lee is the preferred of the two for sure, mostly driven by his shot volume. Over the last 11 games, he's at a point per game with 3 goals and 8 assists while averaging 3.1 shots on goal and 5.1 shot attempts. And if you're in banger formats, he also chips in over a hit per game. Like Palmieri, he is certainly due for some positive regression. He is shooting just 7.1% and has scored 3.1 goals scored below expected this season. So Lee, great volume, great underlying metrics. He looks like a nice option this week. And then Pageau, he's been equally as productive, getting on the score sheet with 11 points, 5 goals, 6 assists in his last 13 games. The problem is his shot volume is the complete opposite of Anders Lee and Kyle Palmieri. He has just 1.3 shots on goal per game. So that makes him less likely to sustain this moving forward, would be the clear fourth option from the Islanders. You know, Palmieri, Lee, Heineman, certainly above him. But if they're all gone in maybe a deeper league, then I would look to Jean-Gabriel Pageau as the fourth option for the Islanders. Now, I mentioned it. If you take a look at the strength of schedule here, it leaves some options. Those 3 teams aren't great, right? Like the Rangers are struggling to score a little bit, but the matchups are pretty good. The Predators only have 3 games, so if you do have that flexibility on Tuesday, Thursday, you don't get that added benefit. The matchups there are pretty good, though. Against the Rangers and then 2 games against the Penguins, I think they can take advantage there if they can get the offense going a little bit. The Islanders, they got 4 games, 3 light nights, but the matchups are brutal. So take a look, like I said off the top, at Tuesday, at Thursday, because there should be some other options available to you. Specifically, the Edmonton Oilers, they've got 4 games this week. They play Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. So you could pick somebody up there, get them in your lineup, and drop them for the weekend. or somebody like Jack Roslovic would be a long-term hold. So let's take a look here at my write-up at dailyfaceoff.com. And these are the other names to consider if you've got a lineup spot. So I just mentioned Jack Roslovic, 19% rostered. They have 4 games, the best strength of schedule of the week, but only 2 late night games. So if you have that spot on Thursday, Roslovic is an absolutely great streamer while skating on that top line and top power play unit in Edmonton with McDavid and Draisaitl. Then you've got the Vegas Golden Knights, who they have 4 games. 2 of them are light nights, but you could get 3 games out of Barbashev if you've got that lineup spot open on Thursday. He's been great this season, remains a great streaming option while he's skating on that top line with Jack Eichel. Then you've got Dmitry Voronkov, who's 39%, Sean Monahan, who's 33%, and Adam Fantilli, who's 36% from the Columbus Blue Jackets. If you've got lineup spots on Tuesday and Thursday, you might be able to squeeze the Blue Jackets, one of them at least, into your lineup for 3 games to start the week. That would be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. They play at Edmonton on Monday, at Seattle on Tuesday, and then versus Edmonton at home on Thursday. So pretty good matchups early in the season here. You can squeeze them in. That would be definitely beneficial if you've got a roster spot open on Tuesday or Thursday. And then the last one is the New Jersey Devils. They have a Monday-Wednesday schedule to open up the week. So they have 2 late night games to start the week. You could stream somebody from that roster to begin the week, drop them for somebody else later in the week. Arseny Griciak is basically the only one that sticks out as a low-owned option right now in New Jersey. He's really starting to come on here. I've talked about him a couple weeks ago. I really like this kid's game. I think he's just his role is going to continue to expand as the season goes along. And I think he's going to have an impact here in the second half of the season for sure. Starting to come on. I think he could be a great short-term ad. Drop him midweek, and you'll be happy with what you get from that. Those extra 2 games could be huge this week, especially with kind of a limited streaming schedule and kind of I guess more than anything, a streaming schedule that just doesn't have the best teams and best options available. So that's going to do it for this edition of the DFO Fantasy Show. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in, especially if you're watching on YouTube. Please smash that like button, hit the subscribe button. We continue to try to grow our channel over there. Brand new to the YouTube stuff. As always, I know a lot of you guys listening on your podcast platforms as well. We appreciate you just as much. So thank you guys, as always, for tuning in to the DFO Fantasy Show. We'll be back on Tuesday where I'm going to go over all the numbers as I always do. Then Wednesday we'll be joined by our friend Beebs Body for Waiver Wire Wednesday. And then Thursday, Dylan Berthium will be back for the weekend streaming. So that's going to do it. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow. Until then, cheers. Thanks for watching this video. If you want more great fantasy hockey and betting content from myself, Carter Hutton, Matthew Barnaby, and the rest of the DFO analysts, make sure you subscribe to the DFO Fantasy and Betting YouTube channel today and never miss a minute.